Hello, Irish fans, and welcome to another edition of Dome and Domer, the oldest Notre Dame football podcast on the planet. So old that when we started this, they never told us you had to say what every single podcast always says when they start, which is the following. Please like and subscribe our channel and share with social media. Look, I'm not
Or
interested in
don't.
that. I just want to win a national championship, okay? Forget about promoting this. I just need to get through this to help me understand why in the first 15 years of my childhood, I experienced 2 championships, 3 actually. Ed, you could argue that we were 4 because you were born in 66. So
I was actually born in 67. So.
Oh, you were? Oh, so
Yeah.
you were a grade ahead of me. I thought you being a grade ahead, you would. All right, so I was born in 67. So we got 73, the Sugar Bowl. I remember watching that with my dad.
Oh, yeah.
77, I remember Texas game thinking Earl Campbell was going to rush for 250 yards and crush us. And then obviously in 88. And here we are 30, almost 40 years into our adulthood and
Well,
not a single
92
national.
Or 93, I mean, or what?
Well, I mean, we didn't win it.
I'm teasing. Yeah, that was a.
Anyways,
remember that great rematch with Florida State in the.
Exactly. That worked out really well. But here we are.
15 years of therapy. That's all it's been.
That's right.
It's just 15 years of therapy.
It's just truly nothing but therapy, and that's all it is.
Yes,
Having said that, though, Ed, I'll start with you. Texas A&M is going to be a great barometer game, let's call it, for where are we at in the Marcus Freeman era. This is his 3rd year. This is when the culture begins to set in. This is when, the things that you've done and you've experienced. I would obviously add to this. He's a first-time head coach, so you have to kind of account for that somehow. However, having said all that, this is a real big moment for Notre Dame football because this is a game that you can look to and say, okay, where are we at this moment? You got Texas A&M on the road. Notre Dame hangs with them. I mean, I personally think we need to win the game, but that's because I've been dealing with 30 years of not winning big games. but in any event, I mean, this is a great opportunity, a great measuring stick for Freeman and where the football team's at this moment.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree. But I kind of disagree with you a little bit because I think this is a game that I think they have to win. I mean, they're playing a team with a first-year head coach that is sort of, a step behind in developing their new culture. And, Notre Dame has a lot of veteran players. And they've just got to figure out a way to come away with a W, because I think that they have a schedule this year that's slightly sort of underwhelming. Texas A&M has had struggles this year or the last several years. It's not like that they've utilized their talent to its fullest potential. I think Elko's a really good football coach, but hopefully there are some, I think eventually Texas A&M will be very good, but hopefully there's some growing pains their first time out. But I am, I do think that it's not a great matchup for Notre Dame just because, Elko's strengths, I think, sort of play to Notre Dame's weaknesses. He's a defensive, tough-minded coach. He knows Notre Dame's assumed starting quarterback very, very well, having, spent a lot of time with him.
It's true.
And he also, I think he's also probably a little bit far along the experience spectrum than Marcus Freeman. That said, he probably doesn't have sort of he can't sort of do everything. And I think Denbrock and Golden are, it's an overdone story, but they are very experienced. They know what they're doing. Nothing's going to surprise them. The environment is not going to sort of overwhelm our defense. But I know it's conventional wisdom, but You can't, even if, no matter how good your running backs are, or no matter how improved your wide receivers are, you're not going to get very far if you can't keep hands off of the quarterback and sustain a running game. And that would not surprise me at all if it took some time to develop.
Yeah. Yeah. It's unfortunate that that's the biggest question mark on the team because they generally say that it takes about 3 games for the offensive line to gel. But a couple of points you made, Ed, I think are right on. And Coffee, I'll throw this to you, but I mean it's a big problem losing our left tackle going into the first
Okay,
game
so
of the
yeah,
season.
that's
I mean, if you're going to pick one guy on the offensive line, that's the one guy I wouldn't want to lose. So now we're going to have to shuffle and try and make that work. And Elko's a good enough coach where he's gonna exploit that. That's not going to be something that he's just going to not pay attention to. He's that good of a coach that he's going to do that. I think this will be a real interesting strategy of does Notre Dame like kind of go away from the left tackle this whole game or what ends up happening there. But that look, I mean, at the end of the day, Ed's right. If we somehow beat A&M, we could pretty much be 7-0 for the most part. If comparatively looking at the schedule, you don't want to discount Georgia Tech and a few others, but I don't know. I mean, we'd be favored, right? The rest of the games.
I
Through
would
the
imagine
seven.
so. I think well, I don't think this is like losing Joe Alt all of a sudden or a player that caliber. Nothing against Charles Jackson or anything, but I like at least we have the couple weeks to try to fill the
Yeah,
hole.
it was
This
early.
didn't happen like at the halfway through the second quarter of the game or something. I mean, that would really be. But to Ed's point, I think this does really this might allow Elko to exploit one of the mismatches that we'll see between Notre Dame and A&M, where both of these teams' defenses. I mean, A&M's defense is very talented, and their defensive ends are very good. They may still be learning a system. They still may be getting immersed in a new culture, but they do have a lot of talent. And talent sometimes can, I mean, you make a mistake, you take a step the wrong way in one direction. If you've got the talent, you can correct that and still get there and make the play. So
Yeah.
I think I would imagine, given Elko's experience, I would imagine the defensive side of the ball probably is going to gel earlier. Now, I don't think it's going to be the first game. I think Notre Dame has the advantage, especially on defense, that we've had guys who have been, this is the third year. These guys have really learned the system. They're immersed in the culture, and everybody's on the same page with everybody else. Might be a little bit less so on offense, but on A&M, you've got a whole bunch of guys reading from a new playbook. So whether Elko can actually transmit his experience both on defense with Notre Dame against Marcus Freeman and with Riley Leonard into those guys and impart that wisdom quickly enough for it to make a difference, that remains to be seen.
Yeah. Well, Ed, let's start on the offensive side of this. I mean, we obviously know that the offensive line's a big question mark, but and not to say that we're totally proven at the wide receiver level, but we do have some running backs that probably are a little bit deeper than we've had in a long time, even though we've lost Payne for the season. Jeremiah Love has come back with about 15 pounds of pure muscle added to him. Hopefully he hasn't lost a step in his speed, but if the offensive line can block, we should be pretty stout running the football. Again, that's more difficult to do. It's easier to pass block out of the gate until we can find our way for the first 3 games. But offensively, we could. It's a question mark, but if things click for us, we could be pretty doggone good on the offensive side of the ball.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. I mean, but I think that it's kind of hard to come out of the gate in game one and have a game where it seems to me, anyways, that you've got to get you've got to get Riley Leonard to get you a win. Like it's really going to sort of be on his
Yeah.
shoulders. And to me, he kind of like I'm going to enjoy kind of seeing how he plays, because I think at his best he could be kind of a poor man's Josh Allen. He's kind of he's got a little swagger to him.
He does.
Yeah, he's got some toughness to
No
him.
doubt.
I was thinking about this the other day. These quarterbacks that Notre Dame have, they really haven't had some a quarterback with kind of like an outsized, personality. Everett Golson, was a quiet dude. Ian Book was sort of, kind of workmanlike and a little bit undersized. Jack Cohn was, pretty stoic and not exactly nimble. And even Sam Hartman, definitely sort of a, sort of a celebrity lookalike, but his stature, I think, sort of limited his sort of ability to kind of be sort of a little bit larger than life. He's just not a big guy. Whereas
No, he's
Riley
not assertive. Well, I think, at his whole, I mean, you look at last season, and unfortunately for him, that was a defining moment in the Ohio State game when he
Right.
kind of held up going for that 4th and 1. I don't see Riley Leonard holding up at all
Yeah, and
going for that 4th and 1.
Yeah, and that's not. Yeah, that wasn't. And that's what I mean by sort of this stature and this swagger. Like
Yeah,
when you have these kind of guys that are just as willing to sort of run over a safety as they are to fling it
Yep.
45 yards down the field. That's sort of that combination that I don't think. Now it could fall flat, right? Like I mean, he really hasn't had a chance to sort of play for an extended period of time, and that's why I'm saying he's really not going to have a chance to kind of get his bearings. I mean, he's got to come
Right.
in, and I mean, because he very easily could be like the second or third leading rusher on the team this year. I mean,
right. Totally.
there's that, and also, but and that's why I think Denbrock is so important, because to just win at College Station, you're going to have to be multiple. You're going to have to keep them off balance. You're going to have to shift on the fly. I mean, if they're getting pressure, then you're going to have to run quarterback draws. You're going to have to be able to dump the ball off quickly. You're going to have to run some quick slants, because listen, I mean, I don't know how do you say his last name, Charles Jagusa, or how,
Jagasaw, right?
Jagasaw. I don't know if he was going to be, the second coming of Joe Alt, but I've watched enough tape of Tosh Baker to know that he definitely is not,
he's got his
first
work
or
cut
second
out.
round draft choice material. And it's kind of disappointing to me, because if you remember, he was very highly rated coming out of high school.
A huge recruit.
And the book on him is that how nimble he was for a 6'8" guy. He was a basketball player. He was a good basketball player. I mean, there was even talk at one time of him playing both sports, but so far that hasn't sort of shown through. He's certainly big enough, but he also gets he also has been underwhelming in terms of pass pro. So
I
I'd
would agree. It's interesting. Coffee, I'm kind of curious what your take on this is, but I'm sure that a big part of Angeli coming back was the fact that Riley Leonard, I don't think he's played a full season yet. I mean, he's been injury prone, and I'm sure that had something to do with Angeli saying, you know what, I'm going to pass on some lower tier D1 starting positions for me and roll the dice.
He's still one play away. And I think some of that feeds from or comes from what Ed talked about, like his willingness to get that extra yard, run over that safety and stuff like that.
Right.
Well, it's you do those. I mean, on the one hand, you love the attitude, you love the really putting it all out there for teammates and everything. By the same token, though, you are asking for more physical contact. You are asking to potentially get hurt. I think I do think that Riley Leonard has a little bit more of that outsized persona. I think CJ Carr has it also. I think both those guys, and maybe even Kenny Minchie also, and I'll go so far as to say all four of the guys have good leadership qualities. I think all of them are capable of getting under center and having the other 10 guys on the field believing that they can get the job done. I mean, uh, they've been given opportunities. They've made the most of the opportunities they've been given. I I do agree that that probably fed into the calculus, not only for Minchie, but Angeli also. Hey, we're one play away. We're both experienced. We got a freshman sitting behind us who probably is not going to have the wherewithal necessarily in his very first season to jump in the way we can. It's worth taking a year being one step away. And besides, this guy, even if he is healthy the entire year, he's only got 1 year of eligibility left, while we have more. So there's no reason we can't say, let's get through this season. Heck, this is probably Notre Dame's best chance at playoff success in the last couple of years. So why not go along for the ride, knowing that we can be a play away at any time from being able to step in and take control of the team. Worst case scenario, next December, if it looks like everything is set up and it's not going to work out for us, then we transfer. There's no cost and there seems to be a lot of benefit.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I agree with you. I think it's going to be interesting. Look, at the end of the day, it's an environment that's going to be really tough. There's no doubt about it. It's a night game. It's going to be hot. It's hostile. But I think this is where you're going to see whether or not how prepared we are as a football team walking into that environment. And I think it's indicative of, where Marcus Freeman is at this point in time. Probably the best.
It's going to be real quick. I think it's going to be really interesting about, if Notre Dame should be sort of mentally tougher and a more confident team, just in the sense that, they're used to this coaching staff. They kind of know what their mission is. Whereas, A&M, they've lost a lot, in the last several years. I think didn't they lose at least 4 or 5 games every year that Fisher was there?
Yeah, but they're talented. They got a ton of talent.
No.
True,
I agree that they're talented. I'm just saying that,
you got to learn how to win.
It's going to be interesting, when they take a couple punches, if I have no doubt that program will take on Elko's personality at some point.
Eventually, right.
But
that's not game one.
I don't think it's game one.
No.
I mean, we've seen this, movie before, and I think that will, accrue to Notre Dame's benefit. The other thing is that I really think that we sort of tend to sort of overlook a guy that, to me, you could kind of draw a straight line between sort of his absence and a lot of Notre Dame struggles and Hartman's struggles last year, and that's Mitchell Evans. That guy had, a superb start to the year. He's a real weapon.
Yeah.
He's a quarterback's best friend. He made a lot of plays, in the middle of the field.
He has a knack for finding those like zone seams and stuff like that, just getting open.
Yeah,
well, and getting separation too. He's a guy that can separate from somebody.
And he
put a linebacker on him. Linebacker can't stay with him.
No. And apparently he's looking really good in practice. I mean, that's the early word. They're saying he's looking really good.
If you could get, Eli Reardon to figure things out and be a contributor. I mean, those two guys are 6'7".
Yeah.
They're both 6'7", and they're long. I mean, they are definitely, guys that Shrewsbury should take a look at, because they're, and so I think that, in games like this on the road, tight ends really, really matter. I mean, they make, they make some big drive extending plays, and, some sideline type plays. And also they knock guys over to get first downs, after a short, pass out to the flat or that kind of thing. So, I think Notre Dame has enough talent on offense to sort of hide its, offensive line, perhaps deficiencies or growth. I think there's enough skilled players, and including the quarterback in this instance with his athleticism, to sort of hide that a little bit. You can't hide it forever, and you can't hide it on every play. But I think in this case, they just have to do enough to get out of there with a W. And because, the few weeks after that, they could work on developing
Yep.
the right combination on the offensive line, and still, they'll be so much more talented, over the next 2 or 3 games that they should win them.
Yep. All right, let's do the predictions. Coffee. Where do you think as it stands today? It's early too. I mean, we normally don't do a show this early in the season, but barring any more.
So later in the year when we can't get off our asses to actually do a show mid-season, remember that we started this pretty early, so we got out of the gate strong.
Well, I think we should just do a show, once a week until the game, and just make predictions every week, and then we'll
I agree. Based on where things are at,
pick the best out of 3. Yeah.
And it didn't occur to me until about 5 minutes ago that Brand was going to ask what our predictions were, and I hadn't even begun to think about it. I got to actually get the prediction contest on our site turned on. I completely forgot to do that today. I'm going to say Indy's going to score a touchdown late and win 28-17.
All right, and where do you think? Where do we end the season at?
I really don't see a reason why we can't go 12-0, but I'm gonna be a pussy and say 11-1.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll drop one somewhere along the way. Hopefully not at Southern Cal the last week.
Yeah.
Then the problem's going to be that the playoff people are going to look for any possible excuse to really ding us, because they are going to view, rightly so, that our schedule is incredibly weak this year. So
yeah,
I don't know if it's incredibly weak. I mean, USC, Florida State, A&M, that's not terrible.
The top is fine. It's the bottom.
The top is fine. Well, Georgia Tech is probably pretty strong.
Georgia Tech's all right, but we're playing 2 MAC schools and 2 service academies. There's 4 right there.
I get it.
That's true.
That's a third of the schedule.
That's true. Yeah. It's really much more of an Alabama type schedule.
No, true.
But
What do you think, Ed? Where's this? What's your prediction on the game, and what do you think the season is?
Yeah, no, I think they'll find a way to win on that Saturday night. I think their ceiling is really going to be dictated by injuries. I don't, if they have a top 5 defense, but they're a couple of injuries away from giving up some points and some big plays that cost them a game or 2. They have a potentially dynamic offense, but there's a lot of question marks in terms of the ability of the quarterback to gel with the receivers, the ability to the offensive line to grow into an effective unit, not just against Northern Illinois and Miami of Ohio and Army, but against Florida State and SC, at the end of the year. So, I think it's really, really hard to go undefeated. I think I'll put it this way: if they beat Texas A&M, I think anything worse than 11-1 would be a little disappointing. If they stumble against Texas A&M, I think you're probably looking at a 10-2 year. But I think that if I had to, I'll change my prediction a couple times in future shows, but I can see this. I think it's going to be. I could see this team, giving up more than 20 points, only once or twice in the coming year. And I think that could definitely start down at A&M. And so I'll say that Notre Dame's going to win, beat Texas A&M. I'll say 25-12.
Okay, good spread. Yeah, I think I'm right in line with you guys. There's not going to be a blowout in this game. I know there's a few Notre Dame fans that think, "Oh, we're going to show them." That isn't going to happen.
No.
I think it's going to be more like 27-24. I think it's going to be tight, but I think we're going to eke it out because of the fact that we're a little bit more seasoned than what Elko's going to bring to the table. I do think Texas A&M is going to be a damn good football team by the end of the year because Elko's that good of a coach. But I agree with you. Thank God we're playing them the first game of the season. I also
kind of wish the game was in South Bend, though. I mean, if the game was in South Bend, I would
agree. If it's in South Bend, it's a guarantee.
But, yeah.
Anything can happen on the road like that. But I do think we're going to eke it out. And I do think by winning that first game, it's going to set the tone. And I think we're going to go 11-1. It's almost impossible to go 12-0 in college football anymore with the transfers and everything that's involved now in the game. So I think 11-1 is the ceiling. But I think if we beat,
What's ironic though, if Notre Dame's going to go in 11-1, you know, you'd want their one loss to be on August 31st.
true,
Probably
no, I
not.
agree. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I
know,
totally agree with you, especially if
think
A&M plays well and ends up finishing strong.
yeah,
That's going to bode really well for us. However, on the road to Georgia Tech or USC, we might get a little bit of, okay, it was I think the committee's probably going to overlook that. If it's a home loss to Florida State, okay, well, then that's not, depends on where Florida State ends up. But in any event, it kind of just seems like this is a great opportunity for us to get into the playoffs and just make it happen at that point. The schedule favors us. We're in a good spot. It's his third year. We've got seasoned guys at a lot of the strong positions. And so you would think that this would be a good year. Having said that, though, I mean, obviously, Leonard being able to connect from day one, totally new system, totally everything. Who knows? I mean, this is the thing that makes college football so exciting is you just never know. But having said that, I feel pretty good about this. I really think this is going to be a great year for Notre Dame. I think we get into the playoffs, and then it's just going to come down to how does that shake out for us in terms of what's the run look like in the playoffs? And you just never know. I mean, I think everything's wide open at this point.
I agree.
Good deal.
Well,
Mike, are my cataracts acting up, or did you like turn your lights out or something?
No, it's the sun setting here in Fargo finally.
Oh, okay.
I don't have the light on in my room. It's
you kind of like look like your head kind of looks like it's disembodied from.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Madame Leota.
In any event, it's pretty obvious we're not trying to increase our. So, just out of curiosity, you guys will love this. The office that we opened up is in the technology park in North Dakota State University. So we are officially launched Famgenics. And the first day that I show up in the office, the guy across the hall from me, there was no chairs in our office. And so I had to go over there and plead for mercy. Guy's like, yeah, we've got a couple chairs. And I was wearing this shirt. Okay. So the guy says, hey, are you a Notre Dame fan? I'm like, yeah, I'm a graduate. And he's like, oh my God, my grandfather was the dean of students at Notre Dame for 30 years.
Wow.
And McCafferty is his last name. So if I remember right, to be honest with you, I could be completely missing this. Anyways, what got me shook up is he said, oh, no, I'm a huge Notre Dame football fan. And I said, oh, do you listen to any podcasts? And he goes, oh, yeah. And I said, have you ever heard of Dome and Domer? And he goes, yeah, I know those guys. So the 1 in 300 people that listen to us, I happen to run into one of them in Fargo, North Dakota.
Yeah, in one of the most least populous states in the nation.
Exactly.
There may be like 250,000 people listening to them, and you're like, your metrics are all messed up, or
yeah, exactly. Who knows? Who knows? I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just like,
we haven't been
trying to win a national championship. All right.
What are we doing? Right. We don't ask to like and subscribe. We're screwed.
No, we don't. We just want to talk. Want to get through this until we win a national championship, and then the show is going to be canceled. We'll be done.
That's right.
So drop the mic. Goodbye, everybody.
That's when we'll retire.
All right, good deal. We'll leave it there. You've been listening to Dome and Domer, an online conversation about Notre Dame sports from a fan's perspective. For Ed Jordanek, Mike Coffey, I'm Mike Brammer. Thanks for listening.